Malin. I'm lucky to be Davenport City Administrator. I'm going to give you about a 60-second bio. Starts with a little story here, right? Okay, we'll go back 40-odd years. Okay. And it's a love story. It's not a story about a boy who fell in love with the New York Times Square. It's about a boy who fell in love with a city, a great city, one of the great cities. The boy was of very modest means, but the city provided everything he needed. It provided shelter, 1060 West Edison Street. Right? It provided food for the body as well as the spirit. Provided some certain life lessons, hard to learn life lessons.
Yep, there's always next year.
Yeah. One of the life lessons he learned as a young man was that he had the wrong last name. So off he went to the wilderness, where he became familiar with the concept of student debt. Parlay that into a 20-plus year career in local government, where he's had the great good fortune, fall in love with another city. That's my 60-second bio. Yeah. Now this is the third of these classes I've done, and the good news is we haven't lost it. Is this automatic?
No.
Come on, you can do it.
I've done this room before. It's pretty stubborn.
Oh,
almost.
So one of the first things I'd like to do is, now that I told you about myself, and a little bit about all of you, so if you can tell me what your name is, where you live, and one thing you want to learn tonight. And start those on the board. Start right here.
Okay, I'm Joyce Wright. I'm one of the council members for Edgewater on 3rd, and I want to gather as much information as I can from the them.
Okay.
I'm Dr. Ezra Sidran. I'm a senior research scientist for a government agency. I actually have two biggest problems in our neighborhood, which is 3rd Ward, which is on Clay Street, Riverview Terrace.
Okay.
Absentee landlords. We've got to do something about absentee landlords that do not maintain their property. And police. We've got to get more police. We've got to get more police patrols.
Okay.
And I'm Kelly Sidran, and I just want to learn how to deal with the city then.
Okay.
David Anderson, and I live in Malin, but Davenport's more interesting, so.
Of course it is. Okay. So you're just here to learn more about them?
Yeah, right here eventually.
Good for you.
Romer, Mass. I was born here in Davenport 60-some years ago.
Okay. So what you possibly learn that I can teach you about them?
No, my ears are always open.
Okay. Okay. Is there anything in particular you want to know?
Just what's going on, I guess.
Okay.
I'm Rita Moeller. We live on West 8th Street in Davenport.
Okay.
Things in the black and that, just to keep our neighborhood the way we got to go now, and to see what we can better with it.
Okay. Great.
Cheryl Holden, been here all my life, 60.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got 84.
And I just mainly want to learn how to get through all the red tape and avoid all that, and just find an answer to my questions so I get things done with the neighborhood.
Mike Angelis, I'm from Davenport too, and pretty much the same thing she just said. It's kind of how to deal with the city on different issues.
My name is Todd McGreevy, and I live in Bettendorf, but I own property in downtown Davenport. I publish the River Cities Reader, and I'm here to hopefully learn, A, I'd like to find out how I can get a copy of the city's original charter. And B, if there's time permitting, to learn more about the challenges the city faces with financing for the fire and police IPERS. Is that what it is?
Sure.
That the state mandated?
Yeah.
Yeah. There may not be time for that, but if there is, I'd like to learn more about that.
Okay.
Anita McDowell. I'm in the 5th Ward, and I'm just here to learn anything I can.
Okay. Yes, sir.
Rick Pyatt. I own a shop up on Washington Street, and trying to find out more of the workings for the city to help with my improvement of my neighborhood.
I'm Jim Welch. I live in Glen Armo, and I am helping organize Glen Armo neighborhood. And so to that end, I am looking for all the tools I can to be a good leader.
Okay.
Yes, my name is Mary Harrington. I'm here just to learn so that I can learn.
Okay. Great. Well, the title of the course is Navigating City Government. So every few months, Roy asks me to come down here and I talk about government, and I talk about municipal government, I talk about Davenport municipal government, try to address any issues. Welcome. Thanks for being here. A little bit more background on me, and then we'll talk more about Davenport. So I have been in Davenport for almost 10 years now. Prior life, I was effectively a county administrator up in Douglas County, Wisconsin. It's the northwesternmost county in Wisconsin, on the tip of Lake Superior across from Duluth, Minnesota. And I was there for 2 glorious winters. And then one night we asked my daughter, who was in 2nd grade then, a question around the dinner table, and I forget the question, but I remember the answer, because it froze me in my tracks. She said, "Yeah." So we tucked her in and everything was fine. But then my wife said, "Dust off the resume, dear, we're having something." So prior to that Northwoods experience, I was a assistant administrator in various sort of degrees of assistantship in a great little suburb in Lake County, Illinois, north of Chicago, for about 11 or so years. Prior to that, I went to school. So I've been here 10 years, and I've worked for 6 city councils and 4 different mayors. And it's been terrific. Davenport has made great strides. We have a lot of terrific employees, and we do wonderful stuff. I just try to stay out of their way as best I can. I usually like to start out talking about what is government, because there's this notion of you're going to fight City Hall, and you're going to stick it to the man. So let me ask the question: what does government do? Somebody can shout out an answer to that.
Tries to provide us with the services we need.
Okay. Okay. Provide services. Anything else?
Tries to help us with those services that we need to know about.
That's good. Okay. Yeah.
Protect our rights.
Protect our rights. Okay. How about protect your person as well? Okay. Anything else government does?
Provide laws for us to learn how to behave.
Okay. Anything else we do?
Collect and distribute revenue.
Collect. I'll just put the keyword up here. So.
Please.
I don't mind them. I like police and roads and stuff.
Okay. Police and road stuff. Okay. Okay. Anything else? Or is that the starting point? You know, I think it's a good starting point. I always sort of focus on government provides legitimacy. Right? If there's an issue in a community, in a state, in a nation, government has been created to provide the consensual solutions for whatever that challenge might be. So we do that. We do that not just through laws. Here in Davenport, like in a lot of other cities, we pass ordinances. In Davenport, if you want to pass a law, the way that it typically works is somebody will introduce an idea. We have a 10-member city council and a mayor. The mayor only votes in case of a tie or if he wants to veto something. The vetoes don't happen very often. Ties haven't happened often recently. There was a brief period of time where ties are more prevalent. So somebody will have an idea. In Davenport, you need to put an item on the agenda by our rules. That can happen a couple of different ways. 2 aldermen can put an item on the agenda. A committee chair can put an item on his agenda. The mayor can put an item on the agenda, or I, as city administrator, can put an item on the agenda. Now, as a sort of a practical matter, I probably put 98% of the stuff on the agenda because a lot of it's routine stuff, liquor licenses, zoning stuff, all the stuff that's sort of bubbling out in a community of 100,000 gets placed on an agenda by going through the appropriate staff processes and then gets placed on the agenda for council action. From time to time, an alderman will come up with an idea, the mayor will come up with an idea, and they'll place it on the agenda themselves. And then we'll go through the process. The process in Davenport, in Iowa generally, is that you need 3 readings of an ordinance. If you want to pass a law, you have to read it publicly 3 times. Here in Davenport, we have a committee of the whole, often called COW, and then the city council meeting. Both of them now happen 5:30 on Wednesday night. So this will be the last night, Thursday. So this will be Wednesday, and this will be the next Wednesday. In Davenport, we have 4 standing committees. So we have public safety, community development, finance, public works. So all the stuff that the city deals with. We'll go through one of those 4 committees. And it'll just happen right down in City Hall, and we'll talk about the item. Everyone has the ability at these meetings to stand up and you can talk for 5 minutes on any of the items on the agenda. Then they will set the agenda for official action on the next Wednesday. Okay. So that is one cycle. That has to happen 2 more times if you want to pass a law in Davenport and resolve some community issue with a law. Yeah, sure. Stop me anytime.
If you read something then and the committee decides to put it on the agenda for the next meeting, it's effectively filled then, is that the idea?
Yeah, there's a number of ways that it cannot move forward. It can be tabled, tabled indefinitely, tabled for a cycle, tabled for 2 cycles, tabled until some other piece of information comes forward. And once it gets to the city council level, it can't be tabled except at the city council level. Because here in the committees have 5 members each. So 3 people can move something forward. Once it gets to here, again, with a 10-member council, you generally need 6 votes to do something. Okay. So again, that's how ordinances or laws are adapted. I'm not going to forget about taxes, don't worry. Okay, so you have ordinances. Ordinances, you have resolutions, then you have motions. Okay. So these are laws, or ordinances. Do you need more markers? Yeah, if you get if you break one of these, you pay a fine. Something bad happens. 3 readings. 6 weeks, typically. Now there can be special circumstances where by council rules, they say this is so important, we want to take action on it tonight, that the council, by their rules, can suspend the rules. You need 8 votes out of 10 to do that, and pass it here if you wanted to. I mean, that rarely happens. It almost invariably happens when we're trying to, where it's non-controversial, everyone thinks it's a good idea, let's get it done. Oftentimes, they won't even pass it on the first cycle that way. They'll wait to the second cycle because we publish the agendas on Friday or Monday prior, so people can sort of see what's on the agenda. It's on our website. Then unless you were at this meeting, you go, oh gosh, they passed a law and I didn't know. And that's not, so it's a very rare instance that they speeded up past, that they condense it to one cycle. Okay, so that's a law. The other ways that they, yes?
I'm sorry.
You can stop.
Who comprises the committee of the whole versus
okay. Oh, I'm sorry. The committee of the whole are the same people that reform as committee of the whole. What we used to have in the airport as I arrived was a little unwieldy. It was very cumbersome if you wanted to actually have access to city government, in my view. We had the 4 standing committees, 1, 2, 3, 4, right? And they met on a Thursday afternoon, like met for an hour apiece, okay, from like 1 till 5. And then that moved forward to a Monday meeting at, I forget what time, I think it was like 5 o'clock, something like that, 5 to 5:30, okay? And that was the actual committee of the whole. So so all these individual committees put their agendas onto the committee of the whole. And then they went to a Wednesday meeting, and that was like at 7 p.m. as I recall. And that was a city council meeting, okay? Great, thank you, okay. So, and then, again, because you had 3 cycles, it would cycle back, right? So if you wanted to actually be involved in city government, you needed, it helped that you didn't have a job. Because your Thursday afternoon was shot. And then, it helped you if you didn't have a life either. Because Monday was shot. And then they went from Monday to Wednesday was on the agenda. So there was only like this Tuesday, So, again, Davenport's a great, great old city. 175th birthday this year. Chicago's 1 year younger than us, right? So, I mean, all this stuff gets socially constructed over time, right? And, far be it from anyone to raise their hand and say, hey, maybe we have a better idea. We can have a better idea, because this suited the people who knew how the process worked. It didn't suit people at all who, again, had jobs and had lives, and/or lives. So now what technically happens, and we did this just to preserve some tradition, right? We have these standing committees. Many cities don't have standing committees. They just have a committee of the whole. So what happens now technically is we start the committee of the whole meeting together, and then we break up into the individual standing committees, and then we go back to the committee of the whole, and then they set the agenda for a week. And so instead of 1 day in between, you get like 6 days in between. And importantly, when this was going on, when you had these 4 standing committees, so you had 5 people there, you'd have the other 5 not there. So you'd get to this meeting, and the 5 who weren't there had no idea what was talked about, really. I mean, unless they were really, really interested. So what happens here is, you have the standing committees. We have committee chairman and vice chairman, and its only real advantage that you get is if you're chairman, you can introduce a topic on the agenda without anyone else seconding the motion. But so we kept a little bit of tradition. But all 11 of your elected officials are there the whole time to see the whole process. It's much, much less cumbersome. And you get far better context for making decisions, in my view. Yeah, question?
Never mind, answer it.
Oh, okay. Okay, so that's how you want to make a law. This is the old way. And these. I'll get to how they view themselves in a second. And this is the new, we think, more inclusive and certainly more efficient one. Yes, ma'am.
okay, since that's 3 cycles that it goes through, so each time you start over, then you're tweaking each of the things on the agenda.
Well, okay,
And then at
that's
the
an
end
excellent
it's-
question. I should have brought an agenda with me. What happens at the end of the committee of the whole meeting is they will, in each committee, they will say something goes on the discussion agenda or the consent agenda. As an example, this week, I'm going to pull up an agenda on the website. On the agenda, this week we will have 2 items on discussion. Those are things that require, as the name implies, more discussion. The whole rest of it is on the consent agenda. And that gets back to where I said I probably placed 98% of the stuff technically on the agenda because it's perfunctory stuff. So the stuff on the discussion agenda will, if you stop by City Hall next Wednesday night, there'll be 2 items specifically on the discussion agenda, and the council will discuss those things because and the 2 items are, I can do this by memory, are the Eastern Iowa Community College parking arrangement, which they have some questions on, and they're going to table the the Division Street weight limits issue. Now, even the stuff that's on the website, Davenport.iowa.com, even the stuff that's on the consent agenda, it's just pull up on any old thing. Stuff on the consent agenda, any one person, anyone, not just, I never do this, but aldermen, residents, and well, I got a question on the thing on the consent agenda that you're not going to talk about. Can you take it off the consent agenda so we can talk about it? And I've been here 10 years and they've never said no. Sure, you got a question about it, let's talk about it. Okay. Good.
Cow or council?
Yeah, how about council?
Council?
Okay, so let's start.
Can you zoom out a bit? Or is it?
Okay, so here's typical agenda, right? Call a meeting order. This is the part where I always say nothing this evening, Your Honor. It's kind of a joke for us. It's not a funny joke, but if you're in government, it's a joke. Nothing this evening, everything's fine. Then we'll have presentations. Can you pull it up? There we go. Okay, so here we have the discussion agenda. We had 3 items on the discussion agenda last time, and then the whole rest of it will be consent. Yeah, approval of all items on the consent agenda. So this keeps growing, just so they get a sense. All this stuff. Yeah.
All of that's on the consent below
Right,
that?
right,
Okay.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Now, again, every item on the consent agenda initially gets discussed at the committee meetings. So nothing goes on the consent agenda that isn't publicly discussed. It just doesn't happen. But so we'll have all this stuff. We're buying. Hold on, here. Go down just a smidge, just so we get a sense of it. Yeah, go the other way. Oh, here, finance. So finance. So this is setting the public hearing for amending the budget. This is we reject the proposal for cell phones for a variety of reasons. We bought 42 tablets, laptops for our fire guys at $235,000. We bought 11 CPR things. I think we got a grant for that for $156. We did some work on the warehouse. So there will be on any given agenda 40 to 60 items. We're a city of 100,000. A lot of people want to do stuff, and we got to get it processed. Okay. How about we?
Black screen?
Yeah, that'd be great. Okay, so that's an ordinance. That's an actual law that we pass. Resolutions are statements of policy. This is when the city council wants. This isn't a law, but they'll say, we think to resolve a policy issue, this should be done. And they run the gamut, but they're not laws. Then motions are just simply like paying the bills. Motion to tell the city administrator to do this or award that contract or do those things. So that's how we in Davenport resolve community issues officially through the city council agenda. There's a whole world that goes on beyond City Hall, of course, where people are discussing matters and getting together with neighbors or with folks to discuss issues. That's how we do laws. That's how government sort of works. Yeah. Services. Let me I'll put taxes. Talk about taxes in a bit. Okay. Before I go on to other things that local governments do, I want to share a theory that I have.
Craig?
Yeah.
Policies, do those policies pertain to city employees or to residents? Can you explain the policy?
Sure. I'm trying to put the agenda back up there. No. So, here's an example. We would, say we started a program. I saw the Bettendorf News today, and their cover story in the Bettendorf News is how they have a program, how Bettendorf has a program to assist landlords in getting background checks on tenants. That came from Davenport, which you mentioned in the article, which is fine. Setting up a program like that is often done by way of resolution. Okay, we resolve to do these things. Now sometimes there'll be a resolution that says we resolve to do these things, and then there's an ordinance that actually provides the legal, if you don't do these things, what happens. The budget, as an example, would be a resolution. You'll pass the budget by resolution. They'll pass, a contract sometimes by resolution, sometimes by motion, depending upon the size of it. This 76, or this Division Street issue, where we have this growing conflict between residential quality of life and trucks in a growing area of Davenport. There was an ordinance to establish the weight limits so our police could enforce that. But I was at the meeting on Monday night, we had 100 or so folks, and they were resolving that issue. The resolution of that came by resolution, where the city council said, no, we're going to table the ordinance, so trucks can still go down that road. But we're going to resolve, the city council is going to resolve and direct me to build a new street, 76th Street, that will alleviate the truck traffic residential conflict problem and smooth out the road and add a pedestrian crosswalk things for kids. So resolutions are really statements of policy. We think as a city council, this should be done, but it's not a law. Again, motions are typically very small things. Most typically paying bills, approving liquor licenses, approving certain land use issues that aren't zoning, because zoning is technically a law change. Okay. Yes?
So it'd be fair to say that like a resolution is basically a directive for the non-elected members of the city government, like here is your work to do, go do it.
Yeah.
We've made this resolution, so now that needs to be done.
Right. Yeah, I'm going to get to let me before we talk about these other things, I'm going to share a little bit more about how cool I think cities are. Is there ready to go? Oh no, we got. They don't want to see that thing anymore. Hold on. That's all. Stuff we've already seen that. Okay. Here it goes. What does the word community mean? There you go. Okay. What does the word munis mean? We're a municipality. Cities are municipalities. What does munis mean in Latin? It means gift. Right? And kind of means with or together. So communities are those things that convey shared gifts. That's how I do them. So many people do that. So with due respect to the individual rights that make America grand, and you know, business and capitalism and/or self-promotion, depending upon you know, community is what stands the test of time, in my view. And I mentioned I fell in love with the city as a young boy, so I happen to have this view that cities are particularly special. They are the place where people are most free, you know, from Bunker Hill to the Arab Spring. They're the place where people are most free. They're the place where people are most equal. They're the place that are the engines of every economy since the dawn of civilization. Right? From forging things to unleashing ideas. That happens in cities. They're places of beauty and wonder, or they can be, should be. The places where you get to experience new things by yourself or with some of your friends. They're a place where you celebrate. Celebrate, you know, what's cool in your community, what's cool in your nation. They are the place where you stand fast to your ideals while the world is watching. I think cities are magic. I think cities convey social capital from one generation to the next. The best ones convey them in ever-increasing increments. That's my theory about cities. So they're the place where you know your ideals are visible for the world to see. We have any number of grand ideals here in Davenport. One of them is that we are the largest city in America on a major waterway without structural flood protection, and we do it in a particularly special way. And of course, we have great neighborhoods and all the other. So that's a little segue. You go black.
Okay.
I think cities are particularly wonderful. Now, let me ask you this question. What was the first government that was formed by European settlers in America?
Religious?
No. The first government that was formed that was not of Native Americans. I mean, we can go probably deep.
No, Magna Carta was England. Probably the charter for Plymouth. The Plymouth
Okay. Anyone remember the Mayflower Compact? Okay. So I mean, they sail over here, fleeing persecution, and before they even get off the boat, they form a local government. Not a national government, not a state government, not a local government, Mayflower Compact. Okay. It's because, you have all these layers of government, right? You got the local, the state, and the federal. I happen to intern, at the other places, and I really found that local government was the place where you could actually have an impact and do meaningful things. I mean, my gosh, God bless all the folks who represent us in Des Moines or in Washington, but their issues seem to me a little disconnected at times. Somebody calls up the phone, and somebody in this room is going to have a problem, you're going to dial 911, and we're going to show up. We're going to show up in less than 4 minutes. And we're going to save your life. If your life is savable, we're going to save your life. That's our deal. So I find that really interesting and compelling work. And which is why I mentioned I was lucky to be the manager of Davenport, or administrator of Davenport. Let me talk about structure a little bit. There's a number of ways that cities can be structured traditionally. We talked about the Mayflower Compact. We'll go back and get at that. The one that was most prevalent in early America was called the town manager fund. They would have, especially in New England, there are still some cities that have this. So once a year, they have a town meeting, right? Big old barn raising. Come on down, and they'll have an agenda, and you better bring something to eat, because you'll be there a while. You'll go through all the stuff, and they'll show hands, who's for it, who's against it, and it's direct democracy. And there's no, for the people who show up. People who don't show up.
Don't we still do that in the form?
Sort of. Okay. So this is sort of the unadulterated, pure town meeting form. Okay.
Let's get local.
Then what used to be the most prevalent form of government was sometimes called mayor council. Sometimes it's called council. The ability to spell is inversely related to the distance you are to the whiteboard. Ever wondered about that? Okay, so mayor council. This is the form of government that most people think exists. I'll tell you in a second that they're wrong in America. But this is the traditional, you elect a council and a mayor, or you elect a council and then the council elects the mayor from the council. That's two different things. There's two different variants of this. There's the strong mayor and then the weak mayor. Does anyone know the difference? Technically, strong mayor means that the mayor appoints, like the fire chief, the police chief, the department heads. Right? But the mayor doesn't. Weak mayor means somebody else does that. Now it's interesting that, who's the strongest mayor? Name a strong mayor somewhere in America.
Well, the Dailies.
The Dailies, okay. But were they strong or weak?
I think technically they were, by your definition, they were weak, but they wielded a lot of power behind the scenes.
Yeah. And they wielded power how?
I'm from Chicago. You don't want to go there.
No, I'm from Chicago too. My last name wasn't Daly. I had to, and they keep the whole city management form of government very hush hush there. So I had to find someplace else. So how did they do it? Inform the group.
The Daily machine worked on the precinct level with captains, precinct captains, and that sort. It was very much tied to patronage.
Okay. And patronage is patron's an interesting word, by the way. Patronage is essentially you scratch my back, I scratch yours. We'll get the dead people to vote. I mean, dead people vote.
That hasn't changed much.
Right. And way back when, in the first Daley administration, that was really blatantly obvious. The second Daley administration, a little bit different actually. The power of the machine really went away in many respects. I'm going to get to, we'll take a brief detour to Galveston, Texas, near the turn of the last century. There was another form of government that's called the commission form of government. So again, here, people directly vote on things. Here, they elect representatives. The representatives work through, again, however their structure goes, but work through the issues and decide things. Commission form of government had a brief spike after a hurricane in Galveston, Texas, where what they needed was the electoral power and will of a real elected official and the ability to act like you would normally see in a staff level position. So in a commission form of government, you'll elect 3 or 5 or however many commissioners, and you'll elect the guy who's effectively the police chief, the guy who's effectively the fire chief, the guy who's effectively the public works director, and so on, right? And that worked really well for that circumstance because American government is made to be slow for a lot of good reasons, so we don't go careening one way or the other, right? There's a lot of checks and balances. This strips a lot out a lot of checks and balances, and they get stuff done. Okay. Can anyone name a commission form of government anywhere around here? There are very few. You can count them on probably your hands and toes in America these days.
In Iowa or Illinois, you mean?
Yeah.
In this region?
Yeah. There was one that was close. Very, very, very. Springfield was a commission form. Cedar Rapids had some aspects of it. They found the good thing about commission forms of government was that they were expedient. Right? Now, expediency over time in people who build little fiefdoms was found to be not a good thing. It was found to be corrupt in many, many places. And in many places, exclusionary, and in many places, commission forms of government were sort of made to change given civil rights issues. So it was a good idea that they had a big spike. Okay, what's the? There's only one more. What's the other form of government? Anyone know?
City manager.
There you go. Yeah. Either city manager or council manager or however you know. Okay. Now how? This is my line of work, so I know a little bit about this. Sorry when I said. This is about 100 years old. The city, we're just about to start celebrate our 100th birthday as a group of managers. It got its start back here when corruption in major cities was rampant at the turn of the last century, and people were dying because of poor health conditions and really cruddy emergency services. So people died, right? And folks said, well, gosh, we have managers in all the. This is sort of the start of the professional movement in a lot of different professions. Should we have a city manager? So here's what the city manager structure looks like. First, so you got the citizens, or you have shareholders, right? In a private corporation. The citizens elect the council and or mayor, and then there's often a city clerk or something, a couple other little functions. Here there will be a board of directors in a private corporation, and then the board of directors in a private corporation will hire a chief executive officer, and then the council manager will hire a city manager. Because it turns out, running a city is fairly complicated. There's a lot of moving parts. It's a 24/7 operation. It's in a very highly regulated fields, multiple fields. People's lives are literally at stake right now, which is why we have excellent police officers and firefighters. And the idea that you're gonna elect someone, and due respect to everyone who raises their hand and says, I'm gonna run for office, I feel passionately about this community or some issue, I'm gonna run for office. With due respect to that, the idea that you're gonna find somebody that out of the electoral pool that also has significant managerial experience is the weakness of these two. And then the weakness of this one, of course, expediency as well. So, if you want to make really big money, do that. They pay us reasonably well. If you want to be a city manager, you need to effectively have a master's degree. You need to sort of intern your way through, 10 or 15 or 20 years of city life, and then they'll appoint you as the city manager. So the citizens elect these people, vest their electoral authority in these people. The city council and mayor normally would only have one employee. In Davenport, that employee is me. Let me explode this a little bit in Davenport to show you. We've got citizens up here. Okay, mayor, council. They hire me. They also appoint. Then I am the boss of all of our departments. Most of our departments. I'm touching that in a second. So police, fire, public works, parks, all of our frontline service departments I'm responsible for. Then you have the support departments, finance, human resources, IT, legal. I'm also there. So we got about 800, 900 or so, depending on how you want to count them. Do you want to count full-time equivalent, or do you want to count seasonal and part-time as well? Count everyone, that's about 1,000. I'm not responsible for, here's the good news, library, civil rights. They are, actually the library has a library board. Civil rights has a civil rights commission. They are appointed by the mayor and council. Okay? So anything that goes on in the library or civil rights, not my issue. We'll have a number of other colors of that. We'll have a number of other boards and commissions. We'll have the Planning and Zoning Commission, right? They'll help us with land use. We'll have Zoning Board of Adjustment. We'll have the Airport Commission. We'll have the Levy Improvement Commission. There's a dozen of these, right? And these are all populated by really terrific volunteer Davenport residents. 95%.
Okay, who handles the transportation department?
Okay. That's excellent. That's in Public Works. When you say transportation, you mean the buses?
Yes.
Okay. That's a function of Public Works. Here in Davenport, like a lot of cities our size, we contract the management of our buses out to a firm that specializes in that. And that's one of the beauties of, or it's one of the maybe advantages of the city manager form of government. These tend to be far more professional than these. I'll give you an example. The city of Davenport right now, just yesterday, learned that our parks and fire departments are going to be nationally accredited. How many cities, towns, and villages are there in America? You want to take a guess. Shout out a number.
100,000.
That's a good one. Probably total government, but municipal governments, 19,000, a little more than 19,000. There used to be 3 government cities that had fully nationally accredited police, fire, public works, and parks, sort of our frontline service departments. There will be 4, because Davenport just after years of work, just made that happen. I would be the boss of the public works director. He, through a very inclusive and public process, actually a bidding process, which is one of the things we use a resolution for, to award a bid, oversees the contract to First Transit. And if you're really interested in that, you can watch that in the next few months. because we're coming up to the time where our contract with First Transit ends, and we'll be sending out another request for proposals, and we'll try to find the best people to take on that task.
The reason I asked that is because I happen to know that Tom's planning on leaving and going back to the other company, and I found out through the grapevine that it was primarily because this unit down here is union, and the other one where he's going is non-union.
Okay.
And he doesn't want to fight with the problems that they run into.
Okay.
But we are getting 4 new ones.
I'm not, yeah, we're getting some new, but I'm not sure. I don't believe that Tom left because we have union employees.
Well, he wanted his family.
Yeah, so he was from Wisconsin.
Yeah.
So he was comfortable with his daughter saying yeah, whereas I had to. Okay, so getting back to these great people, citizens appointed by the mayor and council to help work through some of the community issues we have. So they'll make recommendations to the mayor and council, and then what happens is the mayor and council will, act on those recommendations or pass laws or direct me to do something. Then I direct these people to do what it is they need to do. So the city manager form of government started about 100 years ago, based on the private sector model of shareholders, board of directors, and CEO. Through the course of 100 years, this has become a profession, and you can be certified in take special classes to be a city manager rather than a private sector CEO. There's certain skill sets that help you, and certain approaches to life that help you as well. So those are the 4 structures. Again, this one used to be the most prevalent. Today in America, more citizens live in municipalities that have adopted the city manager form of government.
What do you consider Davenport's to be?
I was gonna write this off, because this gets back to you like to know the original charter. I haven't yet seen that.
You what?
I haven't seen the charter.
You haven't seen the original charter?
No.
Does it exist anymore?
I presume it does. In a city that's 175 years old, it's not like, everything's readily at your fingertips. That's an excellent question. What is our form of government? And again, I'm not trained as an attorney. So I'm going to tell you, from a practical perspective, one of the things that makes Davenport unique in Iowa and even nationally is that we are a special charter city. Right? This is really cool stuff. We're a special charter city. And what that means is we were here, the city of Davenport was here before the state of Iowa was here. That's cool. We were created by Act of Congress. So our foundation is, most cities, the vast majority of cities, were created by their states. In fact, there's a little fountain downtown, Dillon Fountain. If you're in my line of work or associated with my line of work, you'll learn, as a little grad student somewhere, Dillon's rule, which is that cities are creatures of the state. So most other cities have their powers given to them by the state. Right? You have the federal constitution that sets out the powers and duties of the federal government. Then there's all the state rights issues. One of the state rights issues is creating other subordinate units of government. Cities, townships, counties, mosquito abatement districts, it goes on and on. School districts. Davenport is a special charter city. And we have some certain special powers that other Iowa. I think there's only 3 other cities in Iowa that are special charter cities, and I can never remember the name. They're nowhere near our size. Okay. So we have that distinction. We technically have a mayor council, a weak mayor, strong council, strong council form of government. Council. I mean, again, in Davenport, as we speak, the mayor breaks ties and can veto ordinances and resolutions. Another thing, if you don't know this about Davenport, most people do, is we have 8 aldermen by wards, right? And 2 that are at large. So if the mayor, this is one of the reasons why vetoes are rare. This is, again, one man's perspective. I could be wrong. But if the mayor vetoes something, you need 7 of these 10 to do something. And what the mayor is effectively saying then is my one vote is more important than a majority of the council vote. Right? That's kind of throwing down the gauntlet a little bit. You know, I'm the mayor, I'm vetoing that. So you know, public policy is largely built on collaboration and compromise. So that's why vetoing is rare. Again, I've worked for 6 city councils. When I worked for Mayor Ed Winborn, he was breaking ties, you know, once a month. The folks at the time, and they're all very nice people. They just didn't get along so well. That happens from time to time. Here in Davenport, here's the good news. We have 2-year election terms, right? We keep our democracy fresh. I mean, when I tell, you know, when I would go somewhere and see my other city manager friends from other places, 90+% of places will have 4-year staggered terms. And they go, you have 2-year terms? You're working on your 6th council now? I mean, that's crazy. I say, no. We keep our democracy and our ideas fresh. You have to have a positive viewpoint on this. I think that. So we, especially the charter city that is technically mayor council, but they, through the span of time, have morphed my position. So that, practically speaking, we're a city manager, we're a council manager city. And again, that's fairly consistent with the trend across the nation. That things are more complicated. There are more significant consequences if someone screws up. There's all manner of laws and all manner of lawyers here to file a claim. So they tend to start. Actually, they tend to start with a city administrator. They call them the city administrator, and then they tend to, over time, either give the city administrator all the powers that a city manager has, or just make the jump and call him city manager. So my title is city administrator, but I have, in between the guy who preceded me, Jim Pierce, and me, long before I ever set foot in Davenport, I didn't ask for any of this, the city council, going through the process, right, readings and all that, changed the ordinance so that I'm the person who hires and fires department heads. And when I hire them, we have a very inclusive process. There's, you know, usually 10 or 15 people sitting around the table giving me their viewpoints. Because if you do it that way, you don't have to fire somebody. The staff we have now is the fire people. I mean, I've had to fire 50 or so people. If you have 1,000 employees, you don't have to fire them from time to time because we hold people's lives in our hands, and if you don't meet that standard, we will release you to the private sector. That's the phrase that we use in Brunswick. We release to the private sector.
That's much nicer.
Yeah, go spread your wings and fly. You don't meet the standard. And again, of 19,000 cities, 4 are nationally accredited. We're one of them. We have very, very high standards. Yes, sir.
Who accredits? Like who grants that national accreditation?
Various groups. The police is the Commission on Law Enforcement Accreditation. Public Works is the American Public Works Association. Center for Public Safety Excellence. and the Committee for Fire, Accreditation International does fire, Committee on the various professional organizations.
So if you
Adopted
get them all, then
standards.
you can say that you're the city itself.
Yeah, yeah. So as an example, I think I'll get this number right. That means that just those 4 departments had to meet a combined 1,240 standards. You know, Parks is like 150, and police fire is like 400, and a couple hundred. You have to meet those standards, or else you're like the majority of cities, not as professional. Okay, so we are special charter, mayor council, but practically on a day-to-day basis, city manager. One of the things that some people like about the city manager form of government is that there is, in theory and in practice, a very strong division between policy and administration. I don't ever vote on a law. I don't raise my hand in city council. Hey, I think you should. I don't vote. I am charged with the administration of what your elected officials decide is the right thing to do. And thus we are boringly apolitical. We don't. Here's the thing. I can't go to a caucus. When I worked in Illinois, and when I was a college personnel, I would come to Iowa and see the caucuses. Oh, that's great. I can't do that. I can't participate in that. I can't go to a fundraiser. I can't do anything. I don't do any of that stuff. Because then people will think that you're aligned with someone. And the only thing I'm aligned with is trying to make Davenport a terrific, an even more terrific place. Doing what's appropriate for city managers to do. Okay. So that's kind of structure. The services that we provide. We are, cities can do a variety of, not just structurally, but practically can operate in a number of different ways. We are what's typically referred to as a full service city. We have police, fire, public works, parks, library, civil rights, housing, transportation, we've got an airport, used to have a zoo, used to have we'll get there. Community planning and economic development. They make your dreams possible. Right? Public works does the heavy lifting. Police are the thin blue line between civilization and disorder. Fire runs into burning buildings. And civil rights makes sure everyone's treated appropriately. Library unleashes the whole world to our children and citizens through information services. Parks makes life worth living. So I always tell this same lie to everyone. Everyone in my department, you're my favorite department. It's like having children. You're my favorite. You're my favorite department.
That's how it works, doesn't it?
Well, and they really are. I mean, we need all of them. We need, the finance, people that, cut the checks, and we need the legal people to keep us on the straight and narrow. We need planning. Interesting, as I arrived, planning wasn't part of their title. It was community and economic development. And we didn't have a comprehensive plan. We didn't really have any planners on staff to speak of. So I said, well, gosh, how are you going to turn people's ideas into actual things to do? You need planners to help make that work. So those are some of the services. We are a full service city. The services that we don't provide are water and power. Those are services that some cities will provide, but we don't. So when your water bill goes up, that's one thing. Don't complain to me. When everything else goes up, complain to me. Not me. And power. And then there are pros and cons to each one of us. So we could get out of the sewer business right now, we could sell our sewer to somebody and they'd make a whole lot of money. So we run all these things, you know, as a nonprofit operation. An interesting thing about that I had to adjust to here in Iowa was you can't make a profit in Iowa as a local government at doing things. It's not legal. Across the river, I spent 11 years. If you did something that people wanted to pay you a little extra for, and you were good at it, and they could either get it from you or somebody else in the marketplace, you could make a little profit on it. So the city I worked for in Illinois was called Vernon Hills, Illinois. It was at the time the economic engine of Lake County, and the largest non-home rule municipality in the state that did not levy a property tax. For the first 11 years of my life, when someone said, I pay your salary, I could say, well, I don't. I'm happy to help you anyway. So that was terrific, being able to say that. But here, of course, when someone says, I pay your salary, I say, you absolutely do, how can I help you? So we're a full-service city. Some cities just sort of operate as shell games, you know, contract out for a lot of services. You'll see that in a lot of suburbs. You see that in the Sun Belt a lot. But we are, you know, we do everything.
How is contracting out a shell game?
Oh, you often, we contract out a variety of things as well. My take on it is it's very, very difficult and practically impossible to contract out something you deeply care about and you are fundamentally responsible for it. I mean, you can contract out police and fire service. You can contract out, you know, filling potholes. You can contract out snow plowing. But you know, when the flood, I'll just use an example. When the flood comes, it's awfully handy to have all those little boxes I showed you working together. Right? When you get the record time snowfall, it's awfully handy to have people who've been down that street before, who know where the mailboxes are and will only hit every other one of them. So
if you want a job done right, do it yourself.
Yeah, and again, you know, when you go from the citizens demand excellent services and lower taxes, which is, you know, an interesting balance point, demand excellent services of the elected officials, and you gotta contract that. It doesn't work as easily as some people in the private sector might have you believe. And oh, by the way, the people in the private sector, you know, God bless the private sector for all that they do. The people in the private sector are doing it at a profit. You know, so we do things not at a profit. We try to deliver the services that people desire. This notion of you know, so cities help people is fundamentally important and pervades our organization. You know, I've said already tonight that we hold people's lives in our hands. We take that very seriously. There's no room in that organization for spin or subterfuge or secondary agendas. There just isn't. So don't ever confuse the public policy realm, where people have legitimately different perspectives on a topic and need to work through that, with what happens down here at the staff level. Okay, we are wholly, fully committed to the mission of saving people's lives and making their lives better. Rights and taxes. Davenport again has a civil rights commission. We technically don't have to have one, but we do. This is my perspective from, you know, being around it. Davenport's a far more progressive community than most people would think. When I tell people, you know, now I'm from Iowa, because this is my children's hometown, not my hometown, but my children's hometown. That's meaningful to me. You know, they sometimes don't know where it is exactly. But you know, gosh, the quality of life here is extraordinary, and I referenced that. And there is this progressive spirit in Iowa, and you see that expressed, I think, in our elected officials. I worked for 4 mayors. The mayor I work for now is probably the most progressive of the 4.
Can you give us your definition of progressive?
Sure. Being open to the idea, I have to give a couple different. Being open to the idea that collective action can make life better. I think one of the unique things about Midwestern progressivism, if that's a phrase, is that this notion of separation and of self-sufficiency on farms in particular allows people to have a certain freedom, that they don't wish to control their neighbor's life. So you can be free. Go be free and go do something. You know, so Iowa has some policy issues that you would think only happen in very liberal places, with regard to marriage and whatnot. But I think that has something to do with respect for freedom. That's my take on it. Again, I operate typically in the trenches of getting the pothole fixed. So I don't often get the roommate on that. So we take. So we have a Civil Rights Commission, which again is a separate body, independent from my authority. If you have, and they did that effectively to allow civil rights services to happen here locally rather than having to go to Des Moines to file a complaint. And again, so that's a policy decision of the council, something that I'm not part of. But that's my take on why we did it. Taxes. Who likes taxes?
Craig, real quick on the rights issue, though, is that the only body within the city that's responsible for protecting our individual rights?
Oh, no, of course not. Every one of our police officers raises their right hand and swears an oath to protect and defend the Constitution. First Amendment. Every now and then, we'll have these discussions, at a staff level or something. It's the First Amendment. It's not, some it's the first one. So I think some of this progressivism, from my perspective, is we'll have LeClaire Park full of one political party at the same time that we have the River Center full of the other political party, and then in between there'll be other political parties. I work for people who we are nonpartisan local government. That's one of the few things in my profession that I can advocate for. We have a very strict code of ethics. But one thing you can advocate for is a nonpartisan form of government. Because there's no Republican or Democratic way to pave or plow a street. Pave it in the right way, plow it the right way. I probably work for Republicans, and probably work for Democrats, and probably work for very progressive folks, and I probably work for libertarians, and I probably work for folks that might be aligned with the Tea Party before the Tea Party got its name.
The other folks that take an oath of office to protect our rights include the city council, does it
Absolutely,
not?
right.
Okay.
Right.
That's where I was going with this, is that they're the top of your chart, citizens, city council,
Right.
and the council does take an oath to uphold the Constitution, which is to protect our rights.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Right. Yeah, I mean, we are wholly committed to that. And I didn't immediately go there because I'm thinking like a city manager from
That's fair.
From the operational side. But another thing that we do, that we'll get criticized for, is, the road to the White House goes through Iowa. Great fun. So we'll have all manner of folks, telling you what they'll do when they become president, and we, provide protection for them. And people, every 4 years, people will be complaining about, why do you, provide protection? Why do you pay for the, because we want people to be able to stand up on a street corner and say, I got this idea. Great. Yes?
Is there some type of check to make sure that the ordinances that the city council passes don't violate the Constitution?
Yeah. And we have here, wait, the other thing I'll point out, we have this is a change that happened while I was here. Our legal department reports both to me and the city council. Right? So you got the mayor and city council, you got me, and then they are kind of a special, when this happened while I was here. And I don't know if you remember when I talked about when they had all these committees going on, there are the people I work for. I've worked for 100 elected officials in my career so far. They're all terrific. And they view themselves as either trustees or representatives. They either view themselves, and this is a continuum, so it's not one or the other, as you voted for me, I'm going to do what I think is right, and if you don't like it, 2 years from now, vote me out. Right? That's one camp, the trustee camp. The representative camp is, you voted for me, what do you want me to do? Right? So when you have a council, and it's a 10-member council. When I was up in Wisconsin, I worked for a 30-member board, like a United Nations. Except their last name was all Johnson. I didn't know their name. Mr. Johnson, okay. So they're like a little legislature, right? So I mentioned that they changed the ordinance so that all the department heads reported to me prior to my arrival. And that's been helpful in terms of this professionalization effort, right? You're going to be a professional, and we're going to, because you can't succeed by currying favor in our operation. You succeed by success, by work. We like to work to succeed. Okay, so when they did that, they made the corporation council report to the city manager. And some of these elected officials, over here, these guys, so gosh, now, are you, this is the attorney, doing the bidding of this guy, who's not, I'm not elected, I haven't made that clear. I'm not elected. Am I filtering his opinions, his or her opinions? Turns out to be him at the time. And city manager, we're, a little concerned about that. They weren't overly concerned, a little concerned about that. Would it be okay if he reported to us as well? And I said, here's what I say in those instances. I am the appointed city administrator, and luckily so for a great city of Davenport. I am not the elected officials who determine policy. If they want to change around the governing structure a little bit, that's what they get elected to do. So I said, sure, that's fine. My only issue was make sure, I wanted to have another dotted line in between here, so that I didn't have to wait 2 weeks for every city council meeting before I could get a decision out of the city administrator. I mean, we do things that we need decisions now. So that's a little bit longer way of answering your question. I'll get to you. So the attorney reviews everything, right? That ends up on an agenda. Now there will be times when you'll have 1 or 2, sometimes elected officials who say, we got these 3 branches of government. Let's flex our muscles a little bit and see if we can do something a little creative, something that addresses a compelling need that they think that they have. So every now and then, you may do something that's never been done before. I mean, traffic cameras. Who likes the traffic cameras? Who hates the traffic cameras? There you have it. They have absolutely reduced accidents in Davenport. We're all about public safety. It's one thing to protect rights, it's another thing to protect people so that they can have rights. Right? That's something that didn't exist before Davenport said, well, let's try to do that. And then, of course, people sued us, and then they, thankfully, went through the judicial process and said, gosh, are they doing that right? And it turned out that we weren't. And now there are other cities, who have these cameras up on interstates, and I think that's about revenue. So that's sufficient answer to your question. Okay.
I was just going to say, if a policy was passed that you thought was unconstitutional, anyone can hire a lawyer and sue the city over a constitutional issue like that, and that's part of the judicial structure of the
And there's plenty of lawyers that will make it.
And it would, if it didn't work, you could appeal, and it would move up through the state to the state Supreme Court, and if it still didn't work, you could appeal that and go, it kept going. That's how stuff gets to the Supreme Court.
Again, my observation is that the people who run for office do so because they sincerely care about the community, or an issue or a set of issues. And they need to make their case to you folks, and then you vote. For a long time, I never would even vote, because I thought that would somehow reduce my professionalism. I would vote, for the president or whatnot, but I wouldn't vote for local decisions. Taxes. The city of Davenport, like most other places, most of the governments, runs on substantially on taxes. So your elected officials determine what level of taxation and how the taxation gets applied for the services that they provide. Who thinks taxes are too high? About right? I'm just trying to get some feedback. Davenport's taxes are actually comparatively low compared to other Iowa cities like us. That's just, I could have brought a chart. I'll tell you, my observation is the state of Iowa has a fairly anti-urban state legislature. So they don't make it easy for cities to do things. They certainly don't make it easy for us to have the revenue we need to do all the things that every majority would want. There's a cap. It's called the 810 cap in Iowa. You can't have taxes above, the general fund taxes above that level. Then there's an emergency level of 27 cents. You can't go above that. So I'm gonna.
So Craig, your definition of making it difficult is limiting the taxation authority of the city?
I wouldn't say limiting the taxation authority of the city. I would say limiting the decision-making capacity of the city.
Okay.
I mean, certainly, I'll tell you the biggest challenge, the biggest financial challenge we have as a city is we continue to get unfunded mandates from Des Moines. This is, you wanted IPERS, but it's a municipal police and fire retirement system. I'll get these numbers a little bit wrong. But we will probably have to add at least $3 million to our budget over 2 years for having the same number of police and firefighters. Oh, by the way,